Um, Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a new episode of the Master Your Mental podcast. I am really looking forward to this episode, you guys. We're going to be diving into rewiring the subconscious with my awesome special guest I have here for you guys. I am joined by the wonderful Sharon Coleman today, who is a keynote speaker, leadership expert, and transformational coach. Sharon utilizes clear-cut strategies and energy work to show her clients how to recreate self-limiting beliefs, radiate red-hot confidence, and become crystal clear on the vision of life. So without further ado, welcome Sharon to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be with you today. I love the work that you are doing in the world. It's excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm so excited to talk with you too, because you guys don't know this, but before I hit record, we were talking a little bit and I can't wait for her to share her story with us today and really get into this topic because it's such an important thing that I haven't covered for you guys yet. So before we do that, I'd love to ask you, Sharon, just tell us a little bit more about yourself and what lights you up.
Oh my gosh. Well, what lights me up is helping people understand how to rewire their mind and how to live a life that they absolutely deserve living, a life that they love. And it lights me up. And I've had, 30 plus years of amazing spiritual, neurological, business training, you name it. And I love helping people get the same things that helped me and passing it on so that they can have a life change like I did.
Oh my goodness. I love that because when we're going to get into her story actually, probably right now, but this is why it's so important is because she took these experiences that she went through that we all have. We all have these moments in our life where we're faced with obstacles, challenges, a lot of pain, a lot of hurt, all of these things. But what Sharon did is, took that and put it into lessons to give other people as guiding points on how to move forward. So I'd love if you can share a little bit more like about your personal story and journey and like how did you get into doing the work that you are now?
Oh my goodness. So it actually started when I was 26. I had been hiding. I always say I'd been hiding in a bottle. I'd been hiding with alcohol and some drugs, trying to stuff down a lot of memories and trauma that I actually did not remember. I just knew it wasn't good, but I didn't remember. And so what happened is once I stopped the alcohol and the drugs, then all these memories started flooding in and I had no way or means of making sense of them. I was having all these incredible, horrible emotions go on inside of me, and I did not want to be here. So I did start plotting my suicide, which scared me so much because I wasn't talking to anybody about it. And I had a 2-year-old daughter at that point. So this is a big part of it, is that I did not want to be the same kind of mom to her that I had had. And so she was a huge driving force between my decision of I'm going to change my life completely going forward in the life of my children. So, but what happened was I was going to commit suicide. And one night I got down on my knees in total desperation. And I just called out to the divine and I said, if you're there, because I didn't believe anything anymore. I was hopeless. If you're there, help me, please help me. What happened is I had my first amazing spiritual experience where I was completely surrounded in pure unconditional love and peace. It was the most, now I think, gosh, was it an angel? Because it was the most phenomenal experience. But I was so naive. I stayed on my knees for a while. I wouldn't even get up because I did not want that feeling to go away. But it transfixed me. My entire life changed at that moment. And I didn't really understand how impactful it would be, but I got up and I knew for the first time in years that everything was going to be okay. That was the feeling that I was left with. And then within 2 days, I met my mentor, Anne, and my entire life changed. So much deep trauma that had been hidden, molestation that had been hidden, so many things, right? And I wasn't equipped to deal with them at that point, but I learned how to do that and change my life completely around.
Wow. And especially because I feel like that's such a common thing, especially when you talk about, when you were younger, going through all of this and then not remembering this. And then when it all comes back and then feeling completely trapped and stuck and like there's nothing I can do to recover from this. And you start to feel like you can't even communicate it to others, and like you feel like you shouldn't or you can't, but you there's something inside you that wants to get away from it. And that makes so much sense. So, I mean, one thing that I saw about you as well is talking about befriending your fear. So I feel like that is such a powerful thing as well. Cause when we're talking about, dealing with these things and having trauma, sometimes that you don't even remember that these things happen. And then later on it hits you and you have these things that start coming back and realizing this. And then you're like, what do I do now? What do I do? Who do I talk to? Should I talk to someone? Like, where do I go from here? Because I relate to that a lot as well with dealing with, especially when you talk about sexual trauma and, any point in your life. So I'd love to ask, like, what did befriending your fear teach you in those moments, or did it play a role for you in that?
It did. Well, what happened is that this amazing mentor that came into my life taught me about our neurology and how my mind was working, because I had no understanding at that all. At that time, I still felt like I was a victim. I had a
Mhm.
huge victim mindset. Just didn't understand how it works. So she actually taught me that there are these things inside of us. I call them taught habit patterns, which means that we were programmed with certain beliefs about ourselves before we were even 10 years old. And then we just continued to add on to it. So the
Mhm.
problem is that they're stored in our subconscious mind, and they actually look like a train of little synaptic connections within our brain. And so I used to say, I have a broken brain. I have a broken brain. And that's how it felt to me, because it was so really violent in my brain, right? It was
Mhm.
really, when I say I had an inner critic, that's such an understatement, because she was merciless.
Mhm.
And no matter what I did, it wasn't good enough. I had a lot of feelings of shame. I had a lot of self-loathing in my life. And I didn't understand that if I were to change my subconscious mind beliefs, because it's programming, it's just like if you put information onto a CD, when you play it, it's going to be exactly what it was programmed to be. This isn't
Mhm.
like we're at a choice at that level, right? We're only at a choice when we learn how to notice it and then change it completely around. Most of us are never taught those life
Mhm.
skills. So my whole life was fear. I was constantly afraid of what was going to happen. I lived in such a torture prison. And that's why I reach out to people, because I know what it's like to live in that prison in your mind, right? The great news is that we can actually turn it around and use all of that trauma, use the things that just took us apart to put us back
Mhm.
together, to where we learn the truth about who we are, which is we were made perfectly. So before all that conditioning, that outside conditioning and circumstances shaped who we were perfect when we arrived here. That I can assure you.
Mhm.
It's getting back to who we really are, the person that we were meant to be and created to be.
I love that so much because I feel like that is such an important topic that you just laid out right there and just brought to the table, the role of the subconscious in your habits, your thinking. And when you talk about, the self-loathing, the inner critic, the shame, all of these things that are on a continuous loop and they just keep spiraling, and then more negative stuff keeps getting thrown in and thrown in. And it's almost like you get into this habitual pattern of not even being able to recognize when something is helpful or supportive or positive, and it's almost like you don't want it, like, oh, like I want to stay this way, I don't want this. So I feel like that has so much inside of I feel like that can help so much with, with mental health related things, if we're able to tap into more of this. So I'd love to ask, like, what has been the most helpful for you in terms of rewiring your subconscious when you first started doing this work?
I think that the first thing is that this sounds odd maybe, but you've got to step outside of yourself and see your thoughts without attachment to them. Now, they're pretty nightmarish, and because they're ours, right? They seem more real. We've assigned meaning to them. But the reality is, when you stand outside and you start to watch them, I call it notice what you're noticing as the thoughts go by, you will start to understand that you are not your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Most people believe that they are the thoughts that are going through their mind. And with each thought, by the way, in your subconscious mind, there is a emotional response that goes with it. And that's actually programmed into your body chemistry. So if you think a certain thought, you are going to have a certain emotion. The saddest thing is that we are able to control that. We are not the ones that are, we are not a victim of this. I promise you. Now, we were a victim when we were young, perhaps, to get all of it going. But
Mm-hmm.
at this point, we actually have the ability to pay attention to it and then change our relationship with it from being factual. Because if you really look at most of the horrible self-loathing thoughts that we think about ourselves and go through our head, there's no actual evidence that they're true. I want you to think
Mm-hmm.
about that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I sure had one where I was never pretty. I spent my life feeling like, oh man, I'm just the last girl in the door. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not good looking. I had that one. That was one of my pervading thoughts: is you're not pretty. Nobody wants to go out with you, blah, blah, blah. But there was no evidence. It was something that I believed. People
Mm-hmm.
outside of me would say, oh, you're pretty or whatever, but I couldn't receive it, because what happens is we're tuned into those thoughts and we will not receive any information that is outside of that perimeter. That's what perception is. So we draw to us people, places, and things that they actually say, yep, see, I was right. Yep, see, I was right. See how that person treated me? See what just happened to me there? We're actually attracting what it is that we focus on. So a huge tool is to notice what you're noticing, because what you focus on outside of you and your thoughts inside of you, you're actually going to create it. You're going to bring a like experience to you that matches that thought. So when you're able to notice it, and then you're able to alter it and say, well, what is the life I would love to live? Because this sure isn't it. I mean, I would
Mm-hmm.
sure prefer to feel good about myself, right? Rather than horrible about myself, right? When you do that, you actually come up with a new way of thinking, and then you program it into your mind. So it becomes the pervading thought. And as you don't use the negative trains of thoughts, they break off. They actually break off. And so you have new neural pathways that are forging through your mind of the positive.
Wow, that okay, you guys, I'm sitting here right now like writing notes down to like include all of this, because everything you said right now is so powerful, so valuable, and so incredibly helpful, because there's probably so many people out there who feel like they have to stay where they are, because it's almost like you get addicted to that, right? Like having these self-loathing patterns. Because I
Absolutely.
know for myself, looking back on my life and thinking about the way that I used to see myself, the way that I used to see the world around me, the way that, it was almost clouded with just such negativity. And thinking about it now is almost hard to imagine, like, how did I stay that way for so long? And it's now, because I feel like that's the beauty when you start to do the work, is you're able to look back and say, wow, like these are the thoughts I used to have. Because when you brought up such a good point of, a lot of us are not even aware of the thoughts, because they're just going, they're just here's another one, here's another one, here's another one. And we don't always have that, whether it's focus or whatever it is, to like tap into that and say, okay, right now I'm thinking in this moment that I'm not good enough, that I deserve the abuse that happened to me, that everyone around me doesn't support me, no one's going to be on my side, no one's going to believe me, no one's going to protect me. And it's a ripple effect. It starts to spiral of, you start with this and then it's all of this, and that gets so easy to get sucked into. And I think it's so beautiful that you brought up the ways in which we can rewire that, starting with stepping outside of yourself and just becoming aware when you have a thought, journal it, write it down, or however you want to keep
Yes,
track of
right.
that.
Yeah.
So I just love that, because, for me, I feel like something that's been helpful is just habits. And then also, so habits, environments, and self-talk, the people that you have around you, what you do with your time. So I'd love to ask you, in terms of this work that you're doing, is there anything kind of similar to that you've noticed in your life, like habits that you used to have, like places that you used to go to that used to be so damaging to you, and now that you're like stepping out of that, looking back, you realize that. So whether it's related
Uh,
to habits, yeah, I'd love to
I
hear.
think that we're busy. I think that what happens until we understand this work and we start to recognize the incredible, amazing, perfectly born, beautiful person that we really are, who we really are. You see, we wear our thoughts like a mask. We wear our thoughts about ourselves and these familiar feelings and emotion as though that's who we are, but it's not who we are. I assure you. That's what my friend Annie said to me. Honey, if you kill yourself, you'll be killing the wrong one. And
Mhm.
that thought, I was like, what does she mean? What other one is there? Well, now I live in the other one, so I know that there's another one, right? But the thing is that I believe that I was so busy harming myself because I was believing all those thoughts. So when you stop as best as you can, you stop that behavior and you start to do things where you are self-loving and you are literally filling your cup. I did not know how to play. From the way that I was raised, nobody played. Everything was serious. Everybody worked. There was no such thing as play. I had to teach myself to play in my 30s. I had to learn how to go play and enjoy myself. By the way, I'm an expert at it now. Now they can't stop me from doing it. I'm a play baby. But back then I didn't know how to play. That nobody played in my family. And so we start teaching ourselves these new habits and skills where it's like, I am going to love me. I am going to take care of me. And just very quickly, I had a near death experience
Mhm.
12 years ago, and I've got to talk about it because
Yeah.
what happened when I was there is I was really surprised to hear it was just as important. Now, hear me, equally important that we love ourselves as love others. And that's all this journey was really about. So if you've been given a really harsh, really difficult, traumatic journey, it's because you have a path inside of you. You have a way of helping people that other people are not going to be able to do because they can't relate to them, because
Mhm.
they haven't walked down that road. So I know it's difficult to believe, but in every bad there is a seed of good. And when that seed is extracted and you are doing what you were meant to do and give that gift and that understanding to others as you grow and start learning to love yourself, care for yourself, be grateful for you, start doing, remember, those are all messages that are negative that you were given, that you picked up from your surrounding and you were given as a kid. Hey, man, they weren't right. They aren't true. Who
Mhm.
you really are is a thing of incredible beauty. That's who you
Ah,
really are.
oh my gosh. I love this so much. And this is so important because especially when you talk about that part of self-love, because I feel like this kind of comes up a lot, is that we're not taught that. And like you said, no one is taught that. It's almost like we're programmed more to, achieve this, do this, accomplish this, and then once you do this and this and this, then you can celebrate and then you can be happy. But you're not, then it's almost like you start to realize, okay, so if I don't do these things and it doesn't go the way it's planned, then I'm not loved, or I'm not valuable to be loved. Therefore, I don't love myself. And when you start talking about the ways in which you can start to like have that self-compassion and grow that, because that I feel like, and you probably definitely know this for sure, that plays a huge role, right? In rewiring the subconscious.
Incredible, because people think they're human doings.
Mm-hmm.
I am what I do. I am what I accomplish. I am what I don't accomplish. I am my mistakes. I am my, no, you're not. No, you're not. It's simply not true. We are a human being. That means we're a human mess, right? And all the beauty of a mess. We got our dark side, we got our light side, we are a beautiful human being. And so it doesn't matter if you never accomplish another thing from this day out. If you ever never do another thing and you spend the rest of your life learning to love yourself, which will make you love others more, by the way, it just works
Mm-hmm.
that way, you will have had an incredibly wonderful journey while you're here.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. It's so true and so powerful. And I want to ask you, so in terms of rewriting your own life story, what has been the most impactful thing that you've come across to help you with that?
It's actually a process that I do. So for everyone who's listening, okay, when you there's an energy scale that was done by this doctor where the most limiting emotions have a very low, heavy energy. So it means that they are dense. That's why people, when they're depressed, they lower their shoulders, they look down, they're low. The energy and emotions that are high are acceptance. Acceptance doesn't mean I like or approve of it. It means I accept this as being exactly like it is. It's our reasoning mind, our really good reasoning mind, not the one we're using against ourselves. I mean, hey, I've always thought I wasn't smart, but there's no evidence to that. That reasoning mind, it's peace, it's deep peace, it's love, it's joy. Do you know that joy is above peace and love on an energy scale? Joy. No, it's allowing yourself to be happy. I mean, forget them if they don't get it. I mean, be happy, right? But so what happens is when you hear that negative limiting thought, it's a constricting feeling or emotion. Remember that the emotions that are expansive are the truth. The emotions that are limiting and feel tight, those are not the truth, guys. Those are just signals going through your brain. They are not the truth. So
Wow.
when you feel that you're getting constricted or you're going to cry or something happens and you've got a lump in your throat, pause, because you're in your parasympathetic nervous system. You are in fight or flight or freeze. So
Mhm.
you are either frozen, not knowing what the next thing to do, or you are going to leave, run away, which I was an expert at before I got help. Man, I could run away from anything,
Mhm.
right? And fight or flight. And then I learned how to fight. I was like, okay, now I'm going to be the fighter. I'm going to fight everybody and everything around me. I have to tell you that when you do that, you stop and you pause and you breathe. And when you take a breath, you do it this specific way. You breathe in and you breathe out as though you are breathing out through a straw, very slowly out through a straw. You don't just go, you're breathing in and you're going. What happens is that moves you from your sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system into your sympathetic nervous system. Now, at that point, because otherwise, you guys, you've flooded your brain with a bunch of chemicals. Adrenaline, dopamine are just like outside addictions. They're chemicals that we become addicted to in
Mhm.
our brain. So when you stop, you slow them down, and all of a sudden your logic comes back because you anesthetize your logic, by the way, when you're upset.
Mhm.
Now you can't make a decision. You can't figure it out. And as Einstein said, and I love, you cannot solve a problem with the same mind that created it.
Wow. I love that. Oh, that's such a good quote. Oh my gosh. This is just, I have so many things that I'm writing down and I can't wait to just put this all out there for everybody because like I love how you talked about those energies with the emotions. And then really like you gave such a good example of actually being able to visually see that when you have someone who's depressed and like you're talking about like the lowered shoulders, the sulking, all of that and tied in with the emotions and feelings that's resulting from that, I think is so incredibly powerful because, you know, we start to think about this in terms of ourselves, right? Like when we feel these things, what are we thinking? And you become more present of it and more aware of it. And that's like something that no one can take away from you. You know, it's so beautiful. And I think that is just, it's such a powerful topic, you know, talking about the role of the subconscious and what does it have to do with trauma that is trapped in the body, or how do
Yes.
we start to connect these pieces. I think that you just really laid that out so beautifully, and it's just so important. I feel like you guys are getting just so much value out of this. And Sharon, the one thing I always love asking everybody this because I always got a different answer from everybody. And I love it because it's so cool. So since you were on the Master Your Mental podcast, I would love to ask you, what are you currently doing right now in this moment to master your mental?
Let me tell you, gratitude has the highest vibrational state. Like right now, I know everywhere you look, it's ad nauseum that there's gratitude, but I promise you this, if you will spend even a day And everything you look at, find something to be grateful for. You don't have to tell another soul, just inside of yourself, go, wow, I'm really grateful that the sun is shining. I'm really grateful that I've got food to eat. I'm really grateful that I've got a roof over my head. So here's the interesting thing. You create a vibration that is so high in energy that it will lift you out of things. And by the way, it will attract more good to you. So if you're grateful for what you do have, more will be attracted to you. And
That's so,
so for
oh,
me,
yes.
I mean, I do it all day. I really do. It's a practice that I do all day long. I literally do. I look and I say, thank you. I'm so grateful for this. I don't care what you believe in. I believe in the divine. I call it the divine because I've had amazing spiritual experiences. I couldn't explain it if I tried, right? There is something there that created me. I am not breathing myself. I am not beating my own heart. And that's something that created you, loves you so much. And I can tell you from dying and going to the other side, there is nothing more that it wants you to know than that. You are totally loved and supported, by the way, not just some crazy love. You are supported you are never alone. I know it feels like you're alone, but I promise you, you're never alone. You're not alone. You're not alone. You just can't see the help and assistance that's there.
Beautiful. I love how you brought up gratitude. I love that you touched on that because that is actually something that has completely transformed my life and in so much. And I feel like when you first, if you're someone who's never tried gratitude or journaling or all of this, you might be a little like hesitant, like, oh, what is this? What is it going to do? But I feel like after doing it for, like you said, and doing this every single day and just sitting here, like I'm alive, I'm breathing, I can see, I can hear, I have a home, I have food that I can eat, I have water that I can, like, there's so much. And I feel like the more you practice it, the more you see. Because when I first started this, I had a very hard time even writing down like 2 things on a paper. I'm like, it would take me like 5 minutes to sit there. And now it's like just 30 things like this, because you start,
Right?
it's so true. The more you start to practice it and tap into it, and I feel like that's what gravitates more to you is when you're able
It
to
will.
appreciate and really, really find value in where you are and where you've been, despite what you've gone through. So I love that you brought that up. And
I
I'm,
want to say this one last thing.
yeah.
This is one last thing, because if you get nothing else out of today, please hear me. What you focus on grows. Where you place your attention, it grows, whatever. So if you're focusing on problems, if you're focusing what's wrong about you, you will have more of that attracted to you. Please stop. Just stop. Go, hey, the gig's up today. I'm stopping. When you focus on what is good, find the good in you and in everything around you, I promise you it will grow.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And that's the truth, because I've lived in that for so long, and it's true, you guys. And I feel like you know this too. So, and I love that you said that because it's so powerful and everybody can definitely take something away from that for sure. So I just want to thank you, Sharon, for giving us your time and coming out here on the Master Your Mental podcast. This has been such an incredible conversation, such amazing tips that you brought to the table. It was so nice to hear a little bit about your story and your experiences. So thank you for coming out. This has been amazing.
I have loved being here with you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, of course. And you guys, whether you guys are listening during the daytime or the nighttime, I want to say have a good rest of your day or have a beautiful evening. And on that note, I'm going to end it and say bye to you guys and bye to Sharon. So bye, Sharon.
Bye.
Bye.